They can learn. They can create. They can even hold a conversation that might fool you. But behind the algorithms, behind the code, is there anyone home? Is AI conscious? The question of whether artificial intelligence can be conscious is one of the most profound and, frankly, mind-bending debates of our time. It's a question that forces us to confront not just the future of technology, but the very nature of ourselves. It pulls in philosophy, neuroscience, computer science, even spirituality. And the answers? Well, they're anything but simple. But before we can even begin to ask if a machine can be conscious, we have to grapple with a much bigger question. What is consciousness anyway? What does it mean to be conscious? At its most basic level, consciousness is about subjective experience. It's the what it feels like to be you, to be anything at all. Imagine the deepest, richest red you've ever seen, the color of a perfect rose, just after a rain shower. Or think about the taste of your favorite food, that first bite of dark chocolate, melting on your tongue. Or the sharp, sudden sting of a pinprick. These are qualia, the raw, individual, felt qualities of our experience. But consciousness is more than just raw sensation. It's about awareness. There's awareness of the world around us, the sounds you're hearing right now, the feeling of the chair beneath you, the light filtering through a window. But even more importantly, there's self-awareness, the understanding that you are a separate individual with your own unique thoughts, feelings, and history. Now, it's helpful to clarify a couple of key terms you'll hear a lot. Sentience and sapience. They're often used interchangeably, but there's a subtle yet important difference. Think of sentience as the ability to feel, to experience pleasure and pain, joy and sorrow. Sapience, on the other hand, refers to wisdom, intelligence, the capacity for reasoning and learning. Consciousness, in a way, includes both, and something more. And that brings us to what many consider the biggest mystery of all. Philosopher David Chalmers calls this the hard problem of consciousness. We can explain, in ever greater detail, how the brain works, the neural pathways, the chemical reactions, the flow of information. But why does all that physical activity create subjective experience? Why aren't we just incredibly complex biological machines, processing data with no inner life, no lights on inside? It's not just about how the brain works, it's about why it feels like something to be a brain. Think of it like this. We can explain how a car engine works, but that's completely different from explaining what it feels like to drive at 100 miles per hour. To highlight this hard problem, philosophers have come up with thought experiments. Imagine a being that looks and acts exactly like you. It laughs, cries, even discusses philosophy. But inside, there's nothing. No subjective experience. No qualia. It's a philosophical zombie. The hard problem is, why aren't we all zombies? Philosophers have been wrestling with this for millennia. Dualists, like Descartes, believes that mind and matter are fundamentally separate substances, like two different realms. Think of it like a ghost in a machine. The mind is the ghost, and the body is the machine. The challenge, of course, is explaining how these two completely different things interact. Materialists argue that everything, including consciousness, is ultimately physical. It's all just matter and energy, interacting according to the laws of physics. For materialists, everything is matter and energy. Consciousness, therefore, must be a product of the brain's physical processes. It's like the wetness of water. It's not a separate thing. It's a property that emerges from the interaction of water molecules. Then there are the panpsychists, who believe that consciousness isn't limited to brains. It's a fundamental property of the universe, present in everything, even in the smallest particles. This might sound strange, but panpsychists believe that even fundamental particles, like electrons, have some incredible simple form of experience. It's like saying the universe itself is, in some sense, conscious. Of course, this raises the question, how do those tiny, simple experiences combine to create the complex consciousness of a human or an animal? That's known as the combination problem, and it's a major challenge for panpsychism. And finally, we have the illusionists. They take a rather radical stance, arguing that our everyday understanding of consciousness, that feeling of being a unified self, experiencing the world, is essentially a sophisticated trick our brains play on us. Think of it like a magician's illusion. It seems incredibly real, but it's not what we think it is. These different philosophical perspectives show just how complex and multifaceted this issue is. Which one resonates with you the most? Let us know in the comments below. It's a question that has puzzled thinkers for centuries, but philosophy isn't the only approach. What does science have to say about all of this? Neuroscientists have their own theories. Global workspace theory uses this analogy. Imagine the theater stage. Global workforce theory suggests that consciousness is like shifting a spotlight on certain information, making it available to the whole brain. Integrated information theory proposes that consciousness is directly related to how much a system's parts are interconnected and influence each other, how much integrated information it has. Higher order thought theories suggest that consciousness involves having thoughts about your own thoughts, a kind of self-reflection. Predictive processing sees the brain as a prediction machine, constantly trying to anticipate what's going to happen next. Consciousness might be related to how the brain deals with surprises. The brain is always building models of the world and uses those models to predict sensory input. When it's wrong, it has to update its model. Recurrent processing theory emphasizes the importance of feedback loops in the brain. Information constantly being reprocessed and updated. It is thought that the brain is taking in sensory information and feeding it through loops, and the information is being assessed over and over. We'll explore some of these in later videos. So, how does all this relate to artificial intelligence? If consciousness involves subjective experience, awareness, and these complex brain processes, could a machine, something built from silicon and code, ever truly possess these qualities? There might be different levels of consciousness, ranging from minimal awareness in simple organisms to the complex self-awareness we experience as humans. Think of it like a dimmer switch, not just an on-off switch. A simple creature like a worm may be at 2%, your pet cat or dog may be at 25%, and a human is at 100%. This isn't some far-off science fiction scenario. This is a question we need to be grappling with now. Consider the case of Geoffrey Hinton. He's not just some casual observer. He's one of the founding fathers of modern AI. A pioneer whose work is at the very heart of this technology. And he recently made a dramatic move. He resigned from his high-profile position at Google. His reason? A deep and growing concern. Hinton now believes that AI is advancing much faster than most people realize, and that it may be on the cusp of achieving not just intelligence, but consciousness itself. And that, he warns, could change everything. He also says, I've changed my mind about whether these things can be more intelligent than us. I think they're very close to it now, and they will be much more intelligent than us in the future. How do we survive that? So, we're left with more questions than answers. Defining consciousness is a monumental challenge, and the possibility of artificial consciousness is even more perplexing. One thing that is considered in the study of consciousness is self-awareness, and how do we test for that? The astonishing fact is, there's no scientific test to tell if something is conscious. Well, scientists use what's known as the mirror test. It's a simple test. They put a mark on an animal's face, where it can only see it in a mirror. If the animal touches the mark on its own body, it suggests it recognizes the reflection as itself, a sign of self-awareness. Interestingly, only great apes, dolphins, elephants, and magpies have consistently passed this test. The debate about machine consciousness goes way back, from ancient myths about artificial beings to philosophers like Descartes pondering the nature of mind. to the very first mechanical calculators. The question of whether a machine could think has fascinated us. Alan Turing, a pioneering computer scientist in the mid-20th century, came up with a test. He called it the imitation game. It's a test of a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior that's indistinguishable from a human. Today, we know it as the Turing test, and we'll be exploring that in more detail in a future video. So, I put the question to you. What do you think consciousness is? Is it something magical? Something spiritual? Or is it simply a product of complex computation? How would you define it in your own words? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. And be sure to join us for the next installment in this series, where we'll explore the arguments that suggest AI might actually be capable of conscious experience. Want to unlock the power of AI? Our free newsletter gives you the tips, trends, AI news, and tools you need to succeed. Sign up with a link in the description below. Your journey doesn't stop here. Watch our next video right here and keep building your knowledge.